Thank you all for coming this afternoon. We really appreciate you being here. And as Brian mentioned, this fall starts our 40th year here in partnership with Fairhaven. We started doing these lectures over here in 1983. And I looked on some of my calculations today, and as far as I can tell, there's been over 900 lectures from over 400 people to nearly 20,000 attendees. So it's nothing to be shy about. So we're really happy that you spend your afternoons here with us, and I always look forward to coming back in the fall, and I'm happy to be here today. So this we always just have a few announcements to start out with. If you have something that makes noise like a phone or something, if you would put that on silent, we'd appreciate that. We'll take about 45 minutes to hear about this exceptional program today, and then we'll have time for your questions. We like to use the microphone so that everybody can hear the question. So if you'll just save it for that, that would be great. But otherwise, let's go ahead and get started. I'm Carrie Bourne. I'm from the Office of Continuing Education at UW-Whitewater, and as I mentioned, we've been hosting the lecture series here since 1983. Each semester we focus on a theme, and our theme is a little bit multidisciplinary this time because we're really showcasing our award-winning faculty and programs and students a little bit later in the semester. So you'll get to see some of the best this fall. And we'll start out with a really wonderful program led by Dr. James Collins. He's a school psychologist, board-certified behavior analyst, professor of special education, and director of the UW Life program. He enjoys creating opportunities for individuals with significant disabilities and helping his students learn. Please join me in welcoming Dr. James Collins.
Well, thank you, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Okay, I don't hear any in the back, but I was told the mic is working. Y'all let me know if it doesn't. So thank you for joining. I'm James, by the way, and it is a privilege. This is a highlight of my day. I've been hearing about these lectures for years, and I've never had the opportunity to come to one. So this is really, it's my privilege to be here. And I expect I could learn as much from all of you individually as you could learn just from me in this. I could learn in 5 minutes from you and probably what you can learn from me in this entire time. So. Trial by fire. I'll take it. So really, I've been looking forward to this. I look forward to showcasing a little bit of the work that we do at Whitewater. And with that, I think we have some of the best historians in the area in this room. So to kind of kick this off, I want to talk a little bit about what the program is and contrast how times have changed. But I guess when thinking, I like to do icebreakers. I like to kind of talk and get to know my audience a little bit. But when y'all were growing up, and I'm from South Carolina, I'm sorry, so you may hear y'all or something around here a little bit. I've been in Wisconsin for 10 years, although I'm not used to the cold weather. Do you ever get used to the cold weather? It hasn't. What cold weather? My skin is too thin, I think, for this weather up here. But I guess one of the things is when thinking about when you were growing up, and even maybe when some of your children were in school, did you know anybody who had a disability? You just even raise your hand if anybody knew anybody. And then I guess to reflect and kind of consider what was life like, and then beyond that, how are these children treated? Were they given opportunities in the community? Were they treated humanely like everybody else? Or were there some different barriers in place for these folks? And I don't know if anybody's had any personal experiences with anybody like this, but I'll share a little bit of a personal experience that my cousin, who's in his late 50s and was going through this period of time in the 60s, his parents, my aunt and uncle, were encouraged to put him away due to solely Down syndrome. It was the diagnosis at birth that, that was just what was done. And if you contrast that with the way that things go nowadays, it's very different. But I saw a lot of heads nodding, though, that y'all recognize this, and you've lived through this and experienced it in some way, shape, or form. So I think that it sets us up for this next piece. Does anybody have any thoughts? Anything to chime in with that? Any personal experiences? Because I know it can be pretty difficult. Yeah. Yep. Sure. Were the children there treated? Wonderful. And how long ago was that? I'll tell you that's incredible. And unfortunately, people weren't up with the time. Sounds like that school was already ahead of their times, but a lot of folks weren't. No, I appreciate you sharing that.
Could you
And-
repeat a little bit what she just shared?
Sure. Yeah. That went to a school with children with disabilities, some with, you said, with cerebral palsy and other forms of more significant low incidence disabilities, and were treated just the same as everybody else. And that was back in the 50s. And what I'm about to show you is kind of a snapshot from more in the 60s, and then even into the early 70s for how things kind of played out, which I'm sure that some of you are already aware of. So with that, I think that I can talk about it or I can show you. And I have about 5 minutes here. Have any of you heard of Willowbrook? It's kind of the textbook, if you want an example of what schools were like for young children, even young adults with significant disabilities. This, I think, captures that moment. So about 5 minutes. I'm going to skip around once we get into it a few minutes just for sake of brevity. But I think that this will provide a good illustration of where we were, and then I'll lead y'all through to kind of where we are and the things that we're doing now.
I visited the state institutions for the mentally retarded, and I think particularly at Willowbrook that we have a situation that borders on a snake pit, and that the children live in filth. I think all of us are at fault, and I think it's just it's long. Do that something be done about it.
How long have you been at Willowbrook?
18 years.
How is it living on the ward that you live?
Disgrace.
The attendants are trying their best, but the staff is just too small to do anything more than just try and keep the place clean. When there's only one person to take care of 30 or 40, nothing good can possibly happen. No rehabilitation, no training, nothing. The attendants are as much the victim of the conditions here as the patients are.
My problem with telling the story 50 years later is that I'm like Pavlov's dog. I react and I get flashed back to that, to the obscene, the torture of the residents, the inmates there. It was something so utterly terrible that it was almost unbelievable.
This was a secret enclave. The system had set up a way that would not allow any ordinary people to see what was going on inside these brick buildings.
I was given this key on that first day of work. Pretty heavy steel key that you can see. I was told to go to a certain building, and I went there and I opened one door. It was a very heavy metal door. Turned the key, opened it, and I walked a couple of steps and I had to open a second door. I was directed down to the end of the hall. There was another steel door. At 19 years of age, I basically said to myself, what have I gotten myself into? Who is locked behind 3 steel doors? Pushed the door open, and when I walked in, on the other side of the door were 40 toddlers. And why in God's name were they locked behind 3 steel doors?
When I applied for my job, I was really never taken to any of the wards. They just accepted my application and they told me when I would start. And then I went to Building 6, which was my building. And the building supervisor opened the door to the day room, and there was the chaos.
You have no idea what was inside, no idea the savagery, the squalor, the illness, the infectiousness, the violence that was just the norm every day.
it had a stink to it that got into your clothes and into your skin. How unattended, it was hell on earth.
Why would you continue to allow people to share bathrooms with no doors on the stalls when you know 100% of
on our watch? It's mind-blowing.
Well, Willowbrook has a long history, obviously, on this site. It actually was first chartered 75 years ago, and in the charter it was described as a school for the education of what they then termed mental defectives, what we now would say probably would be people with intellectual or developmental disabilities. So it started out with this goal of educating and training people, and much of the coverage that you might see in the newspapers then was designed to encourage people to see this as a good option for their children. But very quickly, through underfunding and understaffing, it became really quite unlivable. At its height, it had about 3 times as many people living in its wards as the place was designed to accommodate.
I would get calls, for example, at the beginning that say to me, somebody's acting out. You need to sign straitjacket order. You need to sign a Thorazine shot to cool them down. And I didn't understand what was going on here at first. It took me a year to really see and figure out the evil, the relentless cruelty that was built into this system to maintain the status quo.
Lack of privacy, and that many of the people were, at that time, because of the budget cuts, there weren't enough changes of clothing to go around, so there was nudity, chaos.
Nobody came into these buildings. Not the director of this place, nobody came into those buildings. They were sealed off, as coffins. They were living coffins for devalued people.
I am the younger sister of a previous resident of Willowbrook who lived here for 10 years before he died in 1968. He actually became a bit of a family secret. I was told that I didn't visit because I didn't want to go at the age of 3. I believe my mother never went because it was too painful. Doctors, social workers, and the belief at that time was, in a situation like this, your best bet is to drop your child off and they will get cared for and to move on with your life. And that is what my parents tried to do. My mother never, ever forgave herself, ever.
When you worked here.
Here we go. Yeah, so it's something that people did, but it also is something that some people regretted after really understanding what happened. But I think good parents with good intentions didn't know. And when your physician is ushering you in a certain direction, not making you, it wasn't something that was forced, but it was something that was highly encouraged. And what parent doesn't listen to their doctor whenever they're being told to do something? So it put families into a very difficult position. And as you could see, the circumstances were pretty terrible, to say the least, for children who were placed in circumstances like this. So fast forward it then into more recent times, and that's where it was. And you might think, well, what's the problem now? Where are what's the data that indicates that this is still an issue? Or where has this gone? Is it as much of an issue as it was? And it's still as much of an issue, but the good thing is there's a lot more social supports in place and a lot more work being done to help individuals with more significant disabilities be successful. But to look at more of a current snapshot of data, that a little bit more than a third, 37% of young adults with, and when I refer to ID or intellectual disability, I'm referring to people with, if you think students, sometimes there's physical characteristics, such as with Down syndrome. Other times there's no physical characteristics, but a person just might be much more limited with their ability to do things intellectually, being able to functionally maybe care for themselves, things of that nature. So it might be visible, but it might be invisible too with the person's disability. But that's really what I'm referring to, that about 37% of young adults with intellectual intellectual disabilities obtain paid employment outside of the home. And then, of course, you contrast that with current unemployment numbers. It's a huge difference, and it's quite a contrast with what's happening with traditional students. So of that 37%, you kind of take that group out and then look at what they're doing. That most have limited opportunities. The majority are kind of ushered into food service, which I don't have a problem with food service as long as that's what the student wants to do. If that's their only option, though, then I've got a problem with that. I think that we all need to figure out things that we want to do. We need to be given opportunities to try different things before we can figure out whether we like it or not. But historically, that just hadn't been done. But yeah, most have those limited opportunities, and then over half of that 37% don't even have full-time work. And then you start thinking about the complications that come in with that's associated with finding work. Most individuals with intellectual disabilities, they probably don't drive. And then thinking about opportunities in a fairly narrow radius from their home, which they may not be able to afford given the significance of their needs, it really can complicate things and really begin compounding one problem with another and then get into a snowball type of an effect. But then you look at those unemployment rates exceeding 70%, it's just incredible. And you think about the hardship that creates, we need to do more. And that's part of the reason why we're doing what we're doing at UW-Whitewater now, recognizing these needs. There's something that we all can do, and we can take steps to making something better, which I've heard some of y'all's story who's in this room before, and some of y'all have already done that before with your own work in the past, so which I think is commendable. But otherwise, a little bit more data here. This one's a little bit older, but nevertheless, that when you look at some of those sheltered employment outcomes, even things, y'all might have heard the term enclaves, where people might work together in big groups for way below minimum wage, in types of jobs that people aren't given dignity and respect and things of that nature that I think is really important. But that's an issue. And then, as I mentioned there, being able to not being able to find gainful employment leads to a lot of other issues, especially though when family's not around. And that's something that's in the back of my mind with our students in the LIFE program. We got to set these folks up for success, even when mom and dad, when family's not around, to make sure that our students will be able to integrate in the community, be successful, and do all the things that make them happy and have a fulfilled life, just like we do. So that's kind of the why. But then I think beyond that, I think a little bit simpler terms, and I don't know about y'all, but I grew up with Winnie the Pooh. Does anybody in here grow up with Winnie the Pooh? Do a little bit of a weird transition here. But I think that this slide and this moment, I think really kind of hammers it home for me and makes sense. We'll see what you think here in a second. Y'all remember this scene? If only he could stop bumping his head around, we'll think of a different way to do it. And that is what I'm here to share with you, that there are other ways that we can deal with these things and lead to improved outcomes and support an entirely new demographic of students who've historically had no chances to go to college. Who's beeping here? Is that me? Oh, it's over here. Okay, I thought, is that coming from over in this section? No. Okay, so here's a snapshot. The LIFE program, LIFE stands for Learning is for Everyone. And with that, you can kind of see, I think in one slide, if I could sum up what the program does, it's in this slide with all of those different domains that we work in. So if you reflect on what your college experience was like, those things that you went to school to study, we do that too, but we also have a lot of other things that we work on our students with, such as self-advocacy, safety, functional academics, getting a job, keeping a job, social skills. I mean, just even basic things that you might think, geez, do I communicate differently with my boss than I do with my buddy? Probably should. How do I fill out a job application? How do I pay bills? How do I make sure that I'm being a good roommate and doing all the things that I need to continue having a roommate want to come live with me and help split the bills? So all of these different things kind of encompass the work that we do. But I've of course summarized it on the right side there. But I think at the end, if you kind of were to capture the work that we do, it's providing a complete college experience where students live on campus, they join student organizations, get involved with every possible thing. For those of you who've been around Whitewater for a while, y'all know the roads get painted purple, right? Our students are right out there in the fray getting purple all over themselves as they're painting and just being part of the community, just like everybody else. And I think doing that isn't just good for our students, but it's good for everybody else too, because they're being exposed to significant disability. And it's been pretty amazing to see stereotypes debunked and people recognizing, well, wait a second, this person can do a lot more than I thought, but they never would have known that unless they had that exposure and that experience by going to campus with others who have different needs than they do. So I think it's been a powerful experience both for our own students and for the general campus community from there. So a little bit closer of a snapshot into the program, the work that we do, that for the first 2 years, our students live on campus. Anybody here know where Tutt Hall is? Isn't that where Jim Belushi and Animal House? I think so. Don't want to tell parents that whenever coming into the program, but yeah, that's where our students live for the first 2 years, and our students take classes 5 days a week. Where our students take traditional coursework, just like every other undergrad. Our students have traditional meal plans, and in Tutt we have supports in place. I'll kind of get to a snapshot here shortly to show you some of the work that we do. But the goal is for our students to have the similar college experience as every other undergrad, living on campus and getting away from home and, frankly, having a safe place to make mistakes, just like I had when going to college. Because I bet that not everybody in this room were like, did everybody in here stay out of trouble? Probably not. I keep my hand down for that one. Probably not. And it's okay, though, usually, as long as we're not getting into too much trouble. We got to have a safety net there. We want to make sure it's a safe place to live, learn, experiment, and grow. But part of that comes with having opportunities to do that. And historically, our students just never had those opportunities. So with that, I already mentioned our students are enrolled in traditional classes and receive specialized instruction. I'll talk more about that here shortly. And I mentioned the student org involvement, but I think the real key is after living on campus for 2 years, students apply, and then assuming that with about 50% acceptance rate so far, we then move students into what we call the advanced program, which is off campus. And from there, our students move into housing that's been Simon Suites, Parker Place, but it's student housing, very close. It's off campus technically, but it's very close. And with that, we are providing students a bit less because we have independent living assistants living with students over in Tutt Hall. We pull those back, and students then kind of change gears to getting supports from, but we call them peer coaches, but realistically, they're undergraduate special education majors, good mentors who will go help students in their off-campus apartments from everything from making sure that the refrigerators are okay, there's no blue, green, fuzzy stuff in there that I might have eaten as an undergrad. Want to make sure it's safe. No, I probably wouldn't have. I don't think. But making sure that it's safe and making sure that students are navigating social issues with their roommates, that we had a student who had a commode kind of plugged up this last weekend, learning how to call maintenance to get that fixed and just navigating real life, other aspects that we can't do. Because in student housing on campus, there's a shared bathroom. Students' privacy is very limited, that they're shared. Well, you know, the dorms, they don't have gold lining around. They're regular, traditional Midwestern dorms. But off campus, all of a sudden, now students have their own bathroom. They have other responsibilities like a lease and paying more bills that we give students opportunities to kind of practice with. So if you think of high school, kind of thinking that as we build a bridge to campus, and then from there, we gradually build a bridge into the community from on-campus work and then a kind of staircase, not a cliff, but a staircase leading out into the apartments and into the community, where we can then help to acclimate students out into the real world from campus. So, but I think I can talk about this. I got some pictures in here that I look forward to showing y'all soon. I think you can talk about it, but then you can actually see it, and I think that helps. But beyond that, just a kind of a chronological, kind of a snapshot of where we've been. Planning really ramped up in 2016 with this, and from there in and that was really planning for what it's going to look like, where are we going to go, getting buy-in at all levels across campus, all the way up to the provost and chancellor's office. And then from there in 2018, we hosted our first open house. And then from there, got our first group of students and officially rolled out in 2019. And with that, we were designated as a comprehensive transition and post-secondary program by the U.S. Department of Education, which you might think, what does the Department of Ed have anything to do at this level? Isn't that K through 12? Well, what that did is it allowed our students to be eligible for Pell Grants. So it gave them, it really validated our work and showed that the work that we do is just as important for a different group of students than it might have been for you or your children who might have been eligible for Pell Grants. Now our students do too, are eligible and get that same benefit as well. And then otherwise, the rest of that stuff up there, IRIS and some of these terms, basically it's funding that we get to offset student tuition. So we bill, just like school districts bill, we bill for the services that we provide, but instead of keeping it, we redirect it. And we've worked, it's been a long process with student accounts, but all the money that we bill for gets redirected right back into student accounts to offset their tuition. So we give it right back to them and want to make this as affordable, as accessible as we can, because college isn't cheap. And this is something that we're doing our best to make it as accessible as we can. But from there, 2021, we graduated our first cohort of students and then rolled out the advanced program, the moving off campus. And then with that, we have much more of an emphasis on getting paid employment, at least 20 hours a week, at least minimum wage. And prior to that, it's more career exploration. We want students figuring out what they want to do. Kind of like, I don't know, if you think about it like a medical school, we do the book work and then we do the performance-based stuff where we go out into the community and do it. The first couple of years are more like the bookwork side of things, and then out in the community happens after that. And that's where we bring students in the off-campus environment and then really help moving them towards more of those advanced goals. And then last year in the spring, we graduated our first cohort. So we are super proud of our crew. And of course, I have some photos for that too to show y'all here in a few. But if you're wondering, what does it take to do something like this? To put it into perspective, we have 15 students and 23 staff. And and that's including student staff. We have 2 full-time people, me and our wonderful program coordinator, Sarah Athorpe, who do that. But so 21 student staff, 23 total. And for those of you who've been behind the scenes and are really good with numbers and management and stuff, we're at about 7.5 to 8 FTE, which means that we have the equivalent of about 7.5 to 8 full-time employees to run this program. But most of our staff are students by design, because students sometimes can teach our students better, their peers, than I can, because they are relatable and they might be more inclined to listen to somebody who's their age, who they can relate to about navigating campus, than somebody who's like me and a little bit less cool. I don't know. Even though I've always thought I was cool, probably not. But yeah, somebody who's more relatable and can help with those things. But there's me. I'm the faculty member who works directly with the program. And then our program coordinator, as I mentioned, Sarah Athorpe, she's really responsible for the day-to-day operations, is almost like a part-time principal, part-time camp counselor, part-time teacher, has a lot of different roles kind of folded up into one, but that's her job. So she's there 5 days per week. Then we have graduate assistants who are instructors, who are all licensed teachers. They're special education majors. And the trade-off is they work 20 hours a week for us, and then we pay for their master's degree. So it works out well because we're recruiting strong students who may not have even wanted to go to graduate school, to keep them hooked into the system so we can get good quality teachers out into the field. But also, they're directly benefiting our life students by, these are handpicked folks who've demonstrated they're wonderful students, really good people, and we're keeping them around for a while to support our students, but then to help them grow and get an advanced degree with that too. So that, I think, is really helpful. Then we have our independent living assistants how many of y'all know about resident assistants, like RAs? Who live in the dorms? Yeah, it's like that, but they do a lot more. Our resident assistants, called IOAs or independent living assistants, they go grocery shopping, they facilitate events, get students to go out into the community and do things, and facilitating just problem solving, helping students with even chore lists and making sure that everybody knows what to do, when to do it, setting folks up for success. Like RAs plus more is kind of what their job is like. And then we have speech and language groups. Conveniently with our campus, I think that most people here know that UW really has a special mission to support students with disabilities. And conveniently, we have a lot of programs geared towards doing just that. One of which is our communication and sciences disorders team that has graduate level clinicians who these students need practice with their developing their skills when they're in college. And conveniently, we have students who can benefit from their practice. So we've paired them up to where we have students in the communication sciences disorders grad students under faculty supervision practicing their craft with our students who have speech and language needs. So it's a really nice fit. And we're trying to find alignment between kind of value added that's a win-win for everybody, from programs that need experience hours. We have students who would benefit from what you're offering, and then we bring them together. Another example was last year, and this year included, we started hosting a social work intern, a social work major. We've now got a graduate level social work intern who is now effectively case managing our students to whenever they're getting ready to go back into their home communities. This social work intern is helping them identify community resources, like things from the Aging and Disability Resource Centers, things that would be if subsidized housing, whatever the students need. We've got somebody there who's helping connect them with resources in their home community. But again, that's great for our students, but it's wonderful work for that intern who's getting to practice what she's going to be doing out in the real world here very soon. So with that, our counseling groups, I think that it's safe to say that a lot of people know when we got to go to a doctor when we're not feeling good on the outside, but it's a little bit harder to talk about it whenever we're not feeling good on the inside. So we talk about that and make it more normal, that it's okay if you're not feeling good, you're feeling anxious, you need to talk with somebody. Great. Our students are getting involved with that. And for the clinicians working with them, it gives them a wonderful opportunity to work with a low incidence population. So again, we're trying to find these natural connections across campus to benefit our students. And then we have job coaches. So if our student is out in the community assembling something, our job coach would be on the assembly line, assembling it right with that student and learning the job and supporting that student all for free. We send the job coaches to the place of business, and our coaches help our students be successful until our students have learned the task. And then we pull the job coaches back and then do periodic check-ins just to make sure that things are going as they should. But it's worked beautifully. It's given our students opportunities. It's given employers opportunities to see what we can do with the correct supports in place to help our students be successful. And likewise, in the classroom, we've had students take a class last semester about volcanoes, another class about astronomy in the physics department. Some of our students take biology courses, dance courses, exercise, walk, bowling. I mean, a lot of these things that I think, geez, golf, I want to do that. Why can't I take this class? So it's giving students opportunities. And if it's a classes over their head and they don't really meet the prerequisites, they can audit it and take it for no credit just to participate and benefit from that experience, even though it doesn't show up for credits on transcript. But over half of our students take things regularly for credit, and getting credits on their transcript and being able to transfer to another place if they wanted to go to a community college or something else after UW-W. So anyway, we have a lot of different supports in place, and that's just a snapshot of the team, who I am incredibly proud of. But beyond that, our students are involved in everything. And I think the inclusion piece is really big on campus because I think that we want to make sure that everybody belongs. And this is a way that we can affirmatively show that by getting students out into the courses. And then also those experiences, we can take that, convert a classroom lesson where we're teaching something, we can then go right over to the dorms and work on it. So if we're talking about cleaning, social skills, whatever, we can go do it and help students kind of with that follow through that in public ed, it doesn't always happen. We can talk about it in a classroom, but then students go home. And then we don't see them until the next day, and there could be entirely different expectations in that environment. But for us, all the staff are on the same page, and we know what those expectations are. So we can teach something in the classroom, and then students can go back to the dorms, and then the independent living assistants can be there to follow through with whatever it is that we taught to make sure that students are getting opportunities to apply it and develop a deeper level of understanding. So, and then those course possibilities, like I say, they've grown substantially in recent years, and there's just been a lot of opportunities and a lot of instructors who have been very supportive and welcoming of our students, which we certainly appreciate. But other than that, I mentioned the advanced program, years 3 and 4. I think, well, I already mentioned that. The advantages of being able to apply something real world out in the community, whether it be signing a lease, dealing with a toilet issue, as I mentioned earlier, cooking things in an authentic kitchen that we have there, living with roommates in different rooms, making sure that we're not losing our keys, being responsible for mail. There's all kinds of things that we can work on in these authentic environments. And of course, our students walk at commencement with everybody else. And I think that is representative of what this means, because even though our students get a certificate upon completing this program, it's reasonably speaking, it's a terminal degree for them. It's the same as that college experience for anybody else. And I think that our students bleed purple as much as any undergrad at UW because they're in classes 5 days a week. They live there. And I think that they're probably on campus more than I was as an undergrad. And our students have gotten involved. I mean, they know more people on campus than I do. They've gotten involved with more student orgs and activities than I'd say the average undergrad does. So definitely bleeding purple. And that is our stole that our students just wore to commencement for our advanced student graduates. We've got to make them a little fancier than our basic students, so they get the fancy stole that we had made for them. But if you want to think about employment, kind of how this goes, we have it starts with volunteer work. We like to get our students out into the community, into things on campus, just getting experience, figuring out what they like, and then I think equally important, showing employers or prospective employers the good work that our students do. So a little bit of an extended interview there, but do some volunteering. And where other students across campus are volunteering also. But then we gradually transition that into paid employment once students, particularly when students move off campus. They apply for that program just like traditional students do to a graduate program. We just kind of treat that second component as they apply, and then we look at the applicants and accept from there. But then you might think kind of next steps beyond the volunteering, that our students have worked at all kinds of different places, whether it be at the children's center, at the gym facilities, at the library, dining services, you name it. Our students have been involved all across campus and doing things that they enjoy. We try to find stuff that's going to be not only something that they're interested in, but things that they'd be interested in enough to really do. It's not just a hobby, but more of a career, something that they could do later on. And I think with that, I'll have to share an update from one of our students here in a few. But if you wonder, like the things that we teach, you can contrast this with your experience in college. Maybe you took Psych 101, statistics, all those fun things, biology. The things that we work on in our classroom are those things related to, if it's related to living independently, getting a job, keeping a job, we're probably teaching those things. And I've got just a bunch of examples. I won't go through all of these, but those daily living skills, self-advocacy is really big. We want for our students to learn about their disabilities so they can advocate for themselves. Let's say that somebody has trouble standing up for extended periods of time. I want you to be able to advocate and say, hey, I can do this job. I just need a stool to sit down when I get tired every now and then I'm able to do it. Figuring out accommodations to help somebody be successful with their work. And so that's just a snapshot into some of the specialized programming there. Yeah, employment skills. It's a totally different, like I say, getting a job is one thing, but keeping the job is a bigger responsibility. But those are all things that we work through, help set our students up for success. All of our students have a credit union account on campus, so they have a budget each week, and we work with students right there with balancing the checkbooks, making sure that we have money before we go to Walmart to spend it. Our students go to Walmart every weekend, so if anybody here goes to Walmart, you might see our crew out, but that's where we shop. But making sure that that we wants versus needs is a big thing that we teach. That you may want that gaming system or that big stereo, but you don't need that. But trying to help, that's not a need. A lot of students think that stuff is a need, and we really work on prioritizing things and then applying that content from the classroom in that authentic environment. But if you think for traditional undergraduates, they don't get training in things like hygiene, things like even money management. I mean, I think at the most basic level, some of these would be good. So yeah, it's not just for our students. I think that some of our traditional undergrads would benefit from this, but it's specifically what we provide for our students in the program. But this is Nathan. Just we heard from him recently, and I had to share this spotlight that one of the things that Nathan, he was here for 4 years and just recently graduated, was among the first students in the entire UW system to graduate from a program like this. And one of the things he loved to do here was go to the library. He loved to go to the campus library, and he loved to go to the gym. He used to work at the gym. He did some custodial work at in the Williams Center on campus, but now he's doing that at the YMCA, and he's going to his local library regularly, carrying on the tradition just like he was doing here, is living on his own with what his mom described as limited support independence, which was really the best outcome that we'd been hoping for. That's where we wanted this student to be, and he's out doing this on his own. And I guess I just can't help but think the opportunities, if some of those students y'all saw earlier from some of those videos, what would have happened there if those same opportunities had been available when you were growing up and when you were in school with some of those students? So I don't want to forget about the past and think about how it all twines together with the present. But we're very proud of Nathan, and he's been doing wonderful things. But I guess with that, I can talk about it, but let me show you what some of these things look like. I've just smashed together a bunch of photos to lead you through here. Some pics before it's taking its time. Before we get on to the Q&A, where you can ask some questions there. Is it gonna go? There it is, just slow. So this is just a bunch of random photos that I put together with our students getting involved. You can kind of self-explanatory. I will say, though, that this is a photo that I took from my classroom where I teach one of our methods courses for instruction for students with intellectual disabilities. And what is convenient is our undergraduate students, our pre-service teachers, learn how to do that instruction, and then we bring in the life students to benefit from that instruction. And as the beneficiaries, not only are they getting some instruction on a goal that's really important to them, but it's expanding their social circles, and they're getting all kinds of good experiences, and it's giving our pre-service teachers unmatched experiences before they go out into the classrooms of their own. But beyond that, you can just see our crew gets involved, whether they be cooking, whether they are just working with athletes or just friends, or even just at the bowling alley on campus. Can see folks are really enjoying their time. There's a big delay here for some reason. It'll click here. I'm confident I clicked it. It'll go. There we go. A few more pics here. Oh yeah, painting the purple. I told y'all painting the roads purple in Whitewater. There we go. But yeah, and then of course that bottom right was our first cohort of graduates ever. I love that photo, even though it's during COVID with the masks. But that was our first cohort ever completing a program of its kind in the UW system, and I'm just super proud of the crew. But yeah, I think those photos really represent some of the work that we do, who the students are. There's a lot of smiling faces. In fact, this is our newest group of students. This is our entire basic program, our students in years 1 and 2 who are living in Tutt Hall. And yep, for most of those students, this was their first week on campus, or they've gone through their first week on campus. And yeah, it's a lot of learning in a little bit of time, but our folks are getting acclimated, and that first week is scary. I think for anybody, not just for people with disabilities. I think it's scary for every student. There's typically rivers of tears from all parents. I know y'all have probably been there before when your drop-off day and the tears flow. It's the same for our students too, but they're settled in, getting all things ready getting their coursework, everything ready to go. But other than that, we had representation at the Special Olympics, which was for the first time ever hosted at UW-Whitewater this summer. And the only UW-Whitewater student who participated was one of our crew. Kevin was there, and he did a fantastic job. So I just had to give you all a sense of what that looked like. Kevin was participating in that, and that is our team. If you want to know what it looks like to make this possible, I'm one cog of this machine, but everybody has a lot of responsibility, and every single person in this photo is a leader in some way, shape, or form of the program, and I'm super proud of them. So it's a wonderful group, and this is the crew that makes the magic happen, and I'm very grateful for all the work that they do, and for our students. I think that, I don't know if I'd share this with families, but I think that our students' families, but I think that our students probably do more for UW-Whitewater in general than we do for them. Even though we do a lot for them, our job is for them, but I think that what they bring to the campus community supersedes the work that we do, because it's exposing other students to this historically marginalized group, and we're showing them really what they can do and not being focused on what they can't do. And that's really opened some eyes. So we've been grateful for that. Otherwise, I think if y'all are interested, we've got a link. You could visit our webpage where we have a lot of other information. I don't use social media too much, but if we got some tweeters in here, y'all can follow us on social media too. We have some links there, but you could just search for UW-Whitewater Life, and it's to be the first thing that pops up.
So yeah, thanks everyone. That was a really, I really had a lot to think about with that whole discussion. I'm going to take a little bit of a side note and thank a gentleman over here who reminded me that today is 9/11. So if you have a moment just to reflect on that tragedy from 22 years ago today, I'm sure we all know exactly where we were at that moment. So that wasn't the topic of the program here, but I did just want to recognize that, and also just want to take a moment to thank Professor James Collins for sharing about his program. And a lot of our students are over here at Whitewater visiting with you folks and doing programs with your folks, so maybe we can get the life students over here as well sometime in the future. So thank you, Professor James Collins.